Hello everyone and welcome back to the GeekWave. This is the low budget show. It's the show so low. How's no budget, baby? We're just sitting here cruising down Marilyn Lane because it's part 2 of our exploration of Marilyn Monroe. Last week we talked all about the legacy and the obsession in popular culture with this magnanimous woman. Today we're looking at her filmography. And one thing you're going to learn as we go through this is that it's not a great legacy of movies, but we'll get into that later. We have a little bit of news to talk about. As always, there's some things in the world that suck. In Hollywood, there's some things that suck. And we are in a very bad time for all of this. The world's fallen apart in terms of entertainment and in the real world, I think the only good thing we have going for us right now, there's two things. First one, Abbott Elementary got 22 episodes this season, and the comeback was stronger than ever. The premiere of the second season's doing gangbusters, so that's great. And then we have a really nice telescope taking pictures of Neptune and Jupiter. The day I'm recording this, I guess, is the closest Jupiter has ever been to Earth. And I'm that's, I guess, a reason to keep going. I guess. I don't know. It's weird. But we had to talk about that, And before we kind of lose our minds collectively, before I do it in particular, because it feels like that's the narrative I'm driving here, that I'm losing it a bit. Let's talk about entertainment. That's what we're here for. That's what we do. We have more sad news to talk about in terms of entertainment, because more shows are hitting the old tax write-off on streaming plug. The unfortunate thing is, 2 major shows have gotten the axe as of now. I'm losing it. I can't keep smiling anymore at this. This is the signs of dangerous things to come. And it sucks and it's scary and I hate it here. And it makes me madder than anything. So the first one earlier in the week was Netflix's first attempt at this. Netflix is finally doing it, everybody. Are you going to pay attention now? Or are all you millennials going to start realizing that Netflix is not the hero you think it is for cinema? Netflix will be removing Hemlock Grove at sometime in October. Now, the thing is, I don't know anybody who's watching Hemlock Grove right now. That's one of their earlier original series that was a big deal when it came out and then kind of faded into obscurity. But now they're getting rid of it. And, it sucks. It sucks. Look, it's not the greatest show on earth. But the fact that they're just we don't need this anymore. It sucks. I feel bad for a lot of those shows that kind of started the streaming service wars. Lilyhammer was one of the first things Netflix did. House of Cards had its own propaganda going for it. But then you look at things like Apple, is anybody really talking about C? And you look at Amazon, it's is anybody really talking about Mozart in the Jungle? Their award-winning show before Maisel? Not really. So Hemlock Grove will be the first original series from Netflix to get the axe on that company. That sucks so much and is a sign that we are spiraling down into dangerous territory. We are getting somewhere that's not good for anybody. And if Netflix is doing it, that means this is the end. This is the end times. If your show is not making a certain number of viewership, it's going to be axed. And I think the most apparent example of that is the other one we have to talk about here, which is, I don't want to say it's sadder than Hemlock Grove, but maybe because the creator has been more vocal than Hemlock Grove. So Ulan Rogers, who poured his heart and soul into this animated property called Final Space. And I've done reviews of Final Space a long time ago. The show was a godsend. Beautiful animation, a unique story in that genre, taking chances no other show was. Final Space was really cool. It was a great endeavor, and they canceled it at season 3. So I guess it was being released through Warner Brothers because it was on TBS for a bit. The episodes streamed on Netflix when they eventually came there. So that makes sense. They moved to HBO Max. Season 3 was the final one. Ulan was trying to find a way to release the end of the story, whether it be, comic book or a short or something. Didn't pan out. He recently took to the social medias to say, yeah, they're axing us. So Final Space is being written off by Warner Bros. Discovery, HBO Max as a tax write-off. The episodes will be removed from the streaming service. No more physical prints will be made of any of the shows. And this man, who, again, he's not the only person in this situation, but he's a vocal person in this, who has poured his heart and his time into this fantastic property that has been his livelihood, that will suddenly no longer be able to be seen by anyone. Thankfully, in some aspect of thankfully, the first 2 seasons have been saved by physical media, but there'll be no more printings of those. There will be no printing of the 3rd season on DVD. This is the worst thing you could ever imagine, and it's happening. And this is the thing, that if you are somebody trying to break into the industry, this is the signs that you don't go to Warner Brothers, and now it's the signs Netflix is doing it too. That's terrifying. It's terrifying. I'm telling you, this is not over. I loved Final Space. I love Ulan Rogers. I hope the guy can somehow not even finish his story, but rebound from this and be given the chance to get something new off the ground, because he deserves it. Like, this is the worst thing you could imagine. There are stories and ideas I have in my head that span years of ideas you could put into any format of book or narrative or anything. If suddenly I dedicated half of, like, a decade of my life to that, and then some powers that be who don't understand what I did were just like, we're not making money on it, so we're just gonna burn it. I don't think I could stay in this industry. I hope he finds footing. I hope he can take solace in the outcry from fans who are thankful that it exists and who are probably going to defend this as something. Again, I cannot believe we have to say this in 2022, that we are in an era of lost media. Why is that happening? That should not be the case. But that is where we are. Things like Hemlock Grove and Final Space are going to be lost to an entire generation, just become some piece of iconography that few can pinpoint and pick up. That is how tragic this is getting. And it's killer. It is killer, and it crushes your soul. Oh, I could spend all day on this, and I might just do it again. It's the worst. Good luck to everybody involved in those properties who are losing something they spent so much time building. It is painful. You will hopefully find your footing again. I can only imagine what's next for you. That sucks. That sucks more than anything. But we're going to try to jump into some more positive news, because Vince Gilligan, who has been, spearheading a lot of stuff at AMC recently. You've seen Better Call Saul? I didn't. I got on his train too late, so I'm like, I'll just wait for the next thing. Well, it looks like the next thing's going to be coming sooner than later, because he already has a deal lined up with Apple TV for a straight-to-season, 2-season story of something. He's bringing back some of the people from Better Call Saul. Oh, Kim, what's her actress's name? Rhea Seehorn or something. She will be returning to whatever this new thing is. It's called like a genre-bending thriller or something. And okay, man, I missed the boat for the first 2 shows that you worked on just because there was so much other content, and I just had to tell myself, you'll get back to it. I didn't, but I will be here for this one. I kind of hope it's completely different than everything else he's made, where it's like, you get this, let's try something different. But that's cool. I can't wait to see what this is going to be. It could be something very special. I just thought that'd be worth checking out. I will definitely be. I feel like if this is like compelling enough, just in terms of like the trailers and the casting we get for it, it could be a show. If I'm still doing this by the time it's released, I will be talking about weekly. If it does a weekly drop, which it probably will, I think that's kind of exciting. So I'm on board for that. That's going to be a cool thing to see. Hopefully it is worthwhile. Hopefully it's something like completely different. I don't need like a hard sci-fi thing, I don't need that, or a hard fantasy thing, but maybe something that's just like a little bit differently, like aesthetic wise, than what Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul were, would be pretty exciting. That could be a cool area to explore. So I am excited for that. Now, we have one more piece of news here that is coming out the day I am recording this. I have to talk about this show, if only for the reason that they filmed in my backyard. Not literally my backyard, but in my area. In my city, in the neighboring city, The Last of Us finally got its trailer. And if you know where they're filming, you probably know where I'm located. And I can't complain. I can't. That trailer was good. Like, the aesthetic was beautiful. It definitely had, like, the Chernobyl aesthetic, like the wide scopes and the sweeping landscapes and just, like, that personal energy to it. The monster looked great. The clicker monster looked really good. If I have one hesitation, it is Pedro Pascal. I feel like he is just doing too many of these kind of roles. And I feel like maybe somebody else could have did it, but we'll see. But I cannot wait to watch this show and literally be like, oh, I've been there. Because I know where they filmed in my city. I've been where they filmed in my city. So I'm hoping I can notice it. I think that's exciting. Like, I'm a Canadian-based guy. If this is the show that gets our city and our province in particular, the higher, echelons of, like, we can film here and do something special. Because I know a lot of boroughs and areas in this province that would make for some great television and great movies. And we're slowly getting there. Prey was nearby where I am. Under the Banner of Heaven was nearby where I am. And you see a couple other things that were in this area. I'm like, this is it. We're getting better. So I hope we are seeing some good stuff from there. Very fun, very cool. That's all the news we got. Last of Us was pretty fun. When we come back from the break, we'll talk about the weird stigmatic history of Marilyn Monroe. So when I say we're going through the entire filmography, I mean everything you've never heard of. Because here's the thing about Marilyn, a lot of people only know like 4. They know Some Like It Hot, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, The 7-Year Itch, maybe other ones, There's not a huge list that people know. And what I'll say to that is, for good reason. Because I got a list here, it's from IMDb. This is her entire filmography. We have 37 titles, but some of them are just like, hey, here's a list of like Marilyn biopics and stuff where we have her likeness, the actual lady. Like President Kennedy's Birthday Salute, the TV movie from, that's not really a movie. It's, oh man, crazy. It's crazy that she's been in like a lot, but you don't remember any of it, That's amazing. So I will be honest with some of you. I have seen about half of these. Like I said before, Marilyn was never my figure to, really dive into. It was the Hepburns for me, Catherine and Audrey. Those were the ones I loved. I like Jane Russell too. We'll talk about that in a bit. So essentially, we're just going to be talking about her filmography together and seeing how it sounds as just concepts and shit. So her first, I guess, billing role is in Dangerous Years from 1947. During a warehouse robbery, a youth counselor is killed by the lead of a teen gang, and the prosecuting district attorney is determined to see justice done. Sure. Only 62 minutes. She's not even on the poster yet. Folks, that is how far back we are going. I don't think there's anything to say about that movie. She's not even the top billed. She's in it though? Cool. Then again, in 1947, you have The Shocking Miss Pilgrim. That sounds awful. Sometimes you get like good titles in this era, and other times you get really shitty ones. Like Dangerous Years sounds really cool. The Shocking Miss Pilgrim sounds awful. In 1948, you have Scuba Who, Scuba Hey. Or Scuda. Scudda Who, Scudda Hey? Somebody's Scudda Game. You get it. In 1948, rural America, 2 stepbrothers compete for the same gal, and the younger brother buys 2 untamed mules for work projects while the older brother tries to sabotage. Okay, let's think about this for a minute. Without getting too into the context or the weeds of this thing. The younger brother buys 2 untamed mules for work projects while the older brother tries to sabotage him. Now, Untamed mules sounds like it would be actual mules, you know? But I wonder if that is just like people. I don't know. I also wonder if like Marilyn's a big role in this. I don't think so because she's not in the top build either. But she's in it. So that sounds awful. I think it's Scudda Who Scudda Hey. I said Scuda or Scubba. I'm like, that, what? Oof, there's a lot about that. Sounds exhausting. But it exists. 48 as well. We have green grass of Wyoming. So, good stuff on the horizon. In Wyoming, several ranchers have their prized mares stolen by a big wild white stallion and must recover them before the governor's stake trotting race day. Okay, so is this a movie where like people have to like fight a horse because it stole the horse? Mare is a horse, right? I don't watch that many of these like shitty stupid western comedy things. But okay, fun. It's like the next movie where her name actually appears on something, and that's Lady of the Chorus. Like her name is like the second build in this. A chorus girl falls in love with a wealthy young man, but their relationship is jeopardized by her mother's fears about the reaction of his family. That sounds like a straight to something movie. Like you understand. Lady of the Chorus, like that's a Marilyn picture. That just sounds like a worse gentleman prefer blondes, you know? Okay. Like these early ones are just like, this is the era of the 40s where I'm like, we're just doing nothing interesting. Out of any of those, I probably would see Ladies of the Chorus. And then we get to one I have seen, which, this is 1949. And we get the first time on this channel. Is it on this channel? It might be on this channel where I get to talk about the Marx Brothers for a bit because we have Love Happy and we have Groucho, Harpo, Chico. Oh man. Here's the thing about the Marx Brothers. I think they are fascinating. I love the concept. I think there's some really funny stuff that come from those films. A lot of modern humor I think emulates from what is being done in those earlier movies with the Marx Brothers. And I think if you are anybody interested in like film history, studying those guys and like how they made their films is necessary and very important. Love Happy was never like one I loved. I was kind of more of like the classicer stuff, but this is them later on in their developments, and it's just like you're seeing like the wheels kind of spinning, not really getting the ground running. It's okay, like as far as like these movies go for the Marxes, they're fine. It's not their best work, but it's so fascinating to me that like, yeah, Marilyn was like still young and effervescent when like the Marx Brothers were like losing. It's crazy. This is how like you don't really think about how tight knit like Hollywood used to be because now you got like studios in every country all over the world doing their own thing. But like, yeah, like the Marx Brothers were like kind of there from like the earliest conception of film and talkies. And then these guys are just like, yeah, we'll put Marilyn in there. You get it. So if you are interested in learning more about the Marx Brothers, Duck Soup's probably one of their better films. It's more interesting, at least. These guys later on in their career, they can't keep doing the silly stuff like this. It just doesn't work. It's the Stooges problem where as soon as you add too much development to that world, it stops being fun. But Groucho will always just be like a classic character that I think a lot of comedians and a lot of artists emulate. It's just weird that we just let that guy paint his face and we just accepted that's what he looked like. It's kind of crazy how Hollywood was back then. Like, what's his gimmick? He's got big eyebrows he just paints on and a weird mustache he paints on. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's just the guy. That's how he looks. Okay. I'm talking more about Marx than I am Marilyn. Oh, then we got 1950. Here we go. Big year for our favorite gal because she's doing a lot more, but still not top build. You see, when we went to Ladies of the Chorus, she was the second build on the list there in the IMDb credits. But then we get a ticket to Tomahawk. She's not even there anymore. In 1876, recent history, people who made this film would be alive back then. The Tomahawk and Western Railroad is expanding through the Rockies, but some stagecoach operators, fearing a loss of revenue, plan to sabotage the railroad. Okay, that sounds terrible. Then again, we get to one I have seen because there was a while back there where I did like a John Huston watch. I'm like, okay, I'm going to see a lot of his works. And the Asphalt Jungle, it's really cool. A major heist goes off as planned, but then double crosses, bad luck, and solid police work cause everything to unravel. I don't want to spoil this one for people. It's not like a heavy Marilyn feature, but it's such a cool movie. It's kind of a really fun idea. Like, we don't really make like film noirs like that anymore. When we do, they have like a certain aesthetic to them that never really like captures any interest in certain things. But yeah, it's fine. If you are interested in like something a little bit different, it's a good one to watch. I'll be honest. So, the Asphalt Jungle is really cool. Maybe I'll do a John Huston video at some point. Like his career is so fascinating to me because it's so random at times, but also then not random at times. It's crazy, 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 crazy. Right cross, yeah. We're getting into that era again, where like the big things are like, okay, it's boxing, it's war, it's noir. Look at this male machismo type of shit, That's the stuff we're looking at. So you got the two boxing promoters compete to sign up Mexican-American prizefighter Johnny Monterrez, who, despite his talent, is ashamed of his heritage and boxes on borrowed time due to a permanent hand injury. Ricardo Montalban in an early role. A Barrymore appears in this film, Not really Marilyn heavy, but she is listed in this for some reason. Again, who has seen that? Who knows? Probably nobody alive has seen that movie. 50 again, we get Fireball, an orphanage, runaway, becomes a roller skating champion, but gets sick with polio. Oh, man. I'm not a Mickey Rooney fan, so I have experienced part of this film, I'm pretty sure, and I hate Mickey Rooney. I don't think he's funny. Maybe because my first exposure to him was Breakfast at Tiffany's, and that just ruined it for me. But no thanks. And just all of those in the same year. In the same year as that, we get the Mankiewicz picture that I'm pretty sure I've talked about All About Eve before. Like, this film is great. It has been parodied in everything you've seen. It is such well-talented people all together doing something brilliant and amazing. Just kind of like, that like you are losing yourself in this role, and I want to become the person you are. Like, it's such like a Hollywood story of like, you have what I want and I need to have that, and it's like that corruption. Like I just got out of a screening of Pearl the day before this, right? The day before I'm doing this, there's elements of like the haves and have-nots that come back to All About Eve in that film that starts here. Like, it really just, that idea kind of grows in here and becomes its own idea later on. But this is hardly a Marilyn picture. She does do pretty good in this one. This is where I think she starts to break out because of the success of this film. It makes her a little bit more compelling, where people are just like, okay, yeah, let's see what you got. Let's see what you got. So it's a Bette Davis picture all the way through. She does great. George Sanders, I should say, he does really good too. Marilyn is fine in it, but that is a part of her filmography. All About Eve, if you're going to watch anything on this list that is not like Marilyn focused, it should be this one. It inspires so much cinema for it. Like, there's some of those classic films that I always tell people, anything you like about film today, it comes back to this thing. Kind of like when you're like, oh, do you like this aspect of comedy? Well, that is clearly the Marx Brothers. If you like this type of thriller with like a woman trying to steal a lifestyle and like put herself in that situation, it starts to All About Eve. Amazing. Bette Davis was still pulling some punches back then. Like, she was doing some great work just so easily for her. It's amazing. In 51, okay, we get more just whatevers. So you got Hometown Story. After failing to be reelected, politician Blake Washburn returns home and I don't care. Yep, just a boring whatever. Nobody has seen that. Nobody alive has seen Hometown Story. And then you got As Young as You Feel, which is a 65-year-old printer hatches an elaborate scheme to avoid forced retirement. That sounds funny. You know, who here, raise your hand if you're a fan of Monty Woolley. I see all the hands in the audience just shot up instantly because they're a fan of it. And now here we go. We are getting into what makes this girl who she is today when her name is suddenly on every single poster. Love Nest. Two married New Yorkers purchase an old rundown building full of colorful tenants. This is kind of fun. It's fine. I remember this is one where I'm like, yeah, I saw it on, it was a TCM or something. And I was just, this is kind of cute. There is some funny stuff going on here. It kind of starts to sing like, oh, here's Marilyn as like that figure we're going to see her be for the rest of her life. It doesn't really start here, but this is where it's like in prominence, like this is who the girl is going to be. Her name is like third build on here. She is going to be that forever now. When Marilyn is in your movie, her name will be on the poster, just like in the same year where she makes Let's Make It Legal, which is the nearly final divorce of the Halsworth suddenly gets complicated when Miriam's old flame comes to town. Again, she's not the top build in this film, but her name is on the poster. She is the fifth build person, and you're like, okay, that sounds terrible. One thing you'll also notice is the more starring roles for Marilyn as we go progressively more into this are roles where she is comedic and the flirty offset. She does another noir at this time called Clash of Night, which is fine. Film noir is a category, like, I have a lot of books on it, actually. Like, I've studied it enough, and I don't think if there's, like, a big audience for it right now because the genre has shifted into certain things in today's climate, but I love a good classic noir. She was fine in this. It's a solid noir. I don't think it's great. Stanwyck does really good in it. She's pretty fun, but everything else is just kind of like okay, if that makes sense. But then in 52 as well, We're Not Married, and oh, this is a weird one. Weird movie. So this is in separate stories, 5 wedded couples learn that they are not legally married. Uh-oh, what are you going to do in that situation? Isn't that the truth? And she's one of the top build on this. It's kind of a Ginger Rogers-led thing, but it's just like a bunch of stories like, look at these famous people we can shove into a comedy where everyone's lovey-dovey for a minute. We're all happier because of it. You know, that's the world we're in now. It's whatever. It's literally whatever. She also does Don't Bother to Knock, which, again, her name is suddenly more prominent. She is one of the central figures on the poster. It is a fine film. And, like, you see what I'm getting at here? Like, we maybe have talked about one iconic movie with her, All About Eve, and that is not, like, her story. Yeah, right? That's where we are. That is where we are with her in this. Don't Bother to Knock. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, Henry's Full House. That sounds terrible. And it's another one like, look at all these people together. John Steinbeck introduces a quintet of 5 of O. Henry's most celebrated stories from his New York period in this anthology film. Sounds terrible. Hathaway's in here. Howard Hawks is... Oh, these are the directors. Oh, yeah, that sounds bad. That doesn't sound interesting at all. And then you get 52's Monkey Business. Again, another Ginger Rogers and Monroe team up. I guess they were getting along back then. And Cary Grant shows up for good measure. So this is off topic, but I was just kind of like looking this thing going around Twitter where it's like, who's the modern day equivalent of Cary Grant where this guy literally will diminish himself for the laugh but still be like the suave gentleman? I got 2 choices for you, John Hamm and Ryan Gosling. We'll move on from that. 1953, we got Niagara. Yeah, finally, she is number 1, baby. This is a Marilyn Monroe feature. It is as 2 couples are visiting Niagara Falls, tensions between one wife and her husband reach the level of murder. Awesome. I like this film. Like, I've said it before. I'll reiterate it again. I don't think Marilyn is the perfect actor. She is good at looking a certain way and behaving a certain way. And when you get somebody that can understand how to work with her, like which we'll get into the next movie, you really find your footing. I think Henry Hathaway does fine with her. And Joseph Cotton, not the best foil to play off of her, but sometimes you just have to make the chemistry yourself and you'll eventually get there. So Niagara is compelling. It's one of those, once again, Niagara Falls. I'm Canadian. Of course I've seen it. It's kind of a weird movie, but it holds up okay. I have to like really think about if it holds up well, but it's whatever. 53, we get into the second of her ones people remember her for. Isn't that crazy? She's done like 20 movies up until this point, and people might remember her from like Asphalt Jungle because it's so well revered, and maybe, All About Eve. But then you get Gentlemen Prefer Blondes from my favorite director of all time, Howard Hawks, starring one of my favorite ladies, Jane Russell. And this film is just awesome. I did an entire review on it on the channel if you're interested in seeing that. It is just a great musical. Every lady is just perfectly playing off each other in this perfect comedy setting. The jokes are landing. Marilyn has never looked more iconic until later on in her career when we get there. But as it stands, look at this beautiful girl doing beautiful stuff. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. She looks red and pink. She's iconic. She is sexy. And this is where she becomes the icon. Like we have other films before that where she's suddenly becoming like this cool prominent figure, but this is where she becomes who she's going to be forever. You see it building up in earlier films, but now she's stuck here. This is who Marilyn's going to be for the rest of her life. Just this person. And then in 53, we have How to Marry a Millionaire. Kind of iconic. I know some people would probably remember that title. I dare you to find anyone under 30 who knows this movie, though. It's fine. It's interesting. I think Marilyn is more iconic than all of these other women, but if I'm being honest, Lauren Bacall, Bette Davis, Jane Russell, Ginger Rogers, like these are people I all like more than Marilyn. It's nothing against her. I have nothing against her with that, but I just think like she had everything working for her to suddenly become that icon that these other women just became forgotten to the time. And I'm not even saying that in like a bad way. But if you were to show a picture of Lauren Bacall, Ginger Rogers, and Bette Davis next to a picture of Marilyn Monroe, which is the one young people are going to recognize, which is the one that Ana de Armas is playing. That's all I'm going to say. 54. Yeah, so How to Marry a Millionaire. It's pretty fun. I like it more than some of the other ones we've talked about. It's not even that great. I did Audrey like a year ago talking about like Audrey Hepburn films. They're all really fun. I don't have much fun talking about these Monroe ones because they're all pretty lame. Like 1954's River of No Return. The titular river unites a farmer recently released from prison, his young son, and an ambitious saloon singer. In order to survive, each must be purged of anger, and each must learn to understand and care for the others. It sounds awful, doesn't it? If you've seen that, I'm sorry. Then you got There's No Business Like Show Business, and yeah, that's exactly what you're expecting. Molly and Terry Donahue plus their 3 children are the 5 Donahues. Son Tim meets hat check girl Vicky, and the family act begins to fall apart. They have parodied this in everything. This is a story you have seen before. Ethel Merman might be a name you haven't heard before, but you probably know this. Again, it's kind of iconic, but is it? Does anybody really know this one? I mean, it's got Ethel Merman and Donald O'Connor, but I don't know if that's like a big one. And again, you got to get like that right director that knows how to use Marilyn. Like we talked about, Howard Hawks knows how to do it, Henry Hathaway-ish. Billy Wilder, another name that knows how to use her. The 7-Year Itch, a fantastic film. I just did a rewatch of this recently. It is so fun. It's just Tommy Boy is having a bit of a crisis because his cute young neighbor is Marilyn Monroe, and he's like, well, I'm married, but it's Marilyn Monroe. That's a movie for over like an hour and a half. That's the movie. And it's not bad. It's not bad. It's really funny. It's a great story. And I watched this one of somebody who has very few experiences with Marilyn. They're like, does she always talk like that? And I'm like, yeah, that's the Marilyn thing. That's her gimmick. That makes her the top billed star. That is her most iconic performance, because this is the film where she wears the white dress. She stands over the what would you call that even? Like the sewer grates, and then the wind blows up and she gets a nice breeze on her 7-Year Itch. Yeah. That's the iconic one, isn't it? You love it. We all love it. We all live for it, live by it. It's great. 56. You see, now we're starting to slow down where we're not doing 4 to 5 pictures because now she's the lead, and we're going to do stuff with her as the lead, which means she can't work every day. We got Bus Stop at 56. And, a naive but stubborn cowboy falls in love with a saloon singer, and she's doing a lot of saloon singing, isn't she? Nobody has seen that movie? It's fine, probably. Here's one I have seen, The Prince and the Showgirl, directed by Laurence Olivier, who famously did not enjoy making this film with her. Why could you say that? Well, because Laurence Olivier is probably a prick. They actually made a movie about the making of this movie. It's called My Weekend with Marilyn. It stars Eddie Redmayne and Michelle Williams. That's a pretty good movie, if only for the fact that Kenneth Branagh plays Laurence Olivier in like the most incestuous casting ever, because that is who he's emulating in his entire career is Laurence Olivier. It's a flawed movie in so many ways. It's kind of just like the last ditch of Marilyn, if that makes sense. After this, we're not going to see her in certain roles. So we have All About Eve, we have Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and then we have, what's that other one? The 7-Year Itch. Then we get 1959, and we get one of my favorite comedies of all time. And I will definitely go deeper into this movie somewhere else in my life, but this is where we get the Billy Wilder. Again, it's Billy Wilder. You get Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, and you get Marilyn Monroe, and we get Some Like It Hot. An insanely funny film, an insanely progressive film. That ending is an ending I don't even think we would do today because it's just so funny but insanely good. Marilyn has such good chemistry with all the cast in this film. They all play off her excellently. It is a Curtis and Lemmon-led thing where they're just kind of like these two dudes just having an insanely fun time. But there's so much to enjoy about this film. It sounds like a premise that shouldn't hold up as well as it does for a movie from the 50s, but holds up so well. Such a good film. I really encourage people to watch this one. Just because the jokes are solid. Marilyn is more mature in her career now, where she's like, I am still like this sexual being. I'm a beautiful girl. I know how to make this work. Watch me do my thing. You're all going to love me anyways. And she's just confident and comfortable enough. Maybe because there's like the history with Billy where he's like, okay, I know how to use you effectively. I know you're not the best at this, but you sell tickets. That's what we need here. This is how we're going to make that work. This is how we're going to save our souls. Some Like It Hot. This might be, I love Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. So if we're talking about like the iconic 4 Marilyn performances, or Marilyn movies, I should say, you got All About Eve, Some Like It Hot, The 7-Year Itch, and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. I have to put this one tied with Gentlemen. I do. And I love all of those films, but if they're just like for Marilyn outages, I think it's got to be Gentlemen. And we got a couple more films left. So we have Let's Make Love, which, sure, man, if you've seen that, I don't believe you. You know, when billionaire Jean-Marc Clement learns that he is to be satirized. Oh, they're going to make fun of him. He doesn't like that. Poor guy. So 60, that's where that goes. It's like, yeah, that's fine. You get The Misfits in 61, which is like a Western for some reason. She's coming back to the old Western thing. But I guess if you're being directed by John Huston again, and Gable is in it, and Montgomery Clift is in it, you're going to do what you want there. So The Misfits is not bad. I remember seeing it a while back because I was like, well, it's time for a Clark Gable watch. I'm like, oh, it's Monroe. Like, oh yeah, this is fine. Some of these Westerns work well. Some of them don't. Like, it's fine. It's completely fine. There's nothing really interesting about it, but it gets the job done, if that makes sense. A lot of, like, we got one more left to talk about, but just going through this list, I'm like, a lot of these are just shit. I don't think any of them are worth checking out. Like, this one is a comedy short called Something's Got to Give. This is from 1962, and this was going to be Marilyn's next film. Dean Martin was in it, and this is when she died. So this is the film she was filming and working on when she died. She got fired originally, rehired, and she died. So they released like a short kind of showing like what they had so far. They had other people come in to finish the scenes, and maybe this would have been worthwhile like eventually if this figured out what it was trying to be. But it just felt too like we're trying too hard to like over sexualize Marilyn instead of giving her any form of agency. And I say that as she is somebody who had a career with no agency, that this film didn't try to give her any. So I don't imagine this would have been good, but that's the last thing she really worked on. And then the rest of this IMDb list is just like, here is some stupid biopic docu shit. I guess we should talk about President Kennedy's birthday salute. That was a big deal. And she sang to him in this really, really, really intimate way that sparked some controversy throughout the Capitol. And that happened. Then like, here's the legend of Marilyn Monroe from 65. Like, yeah, great. The legend, like 3 years after she died. 86, crazy about the movies Marilyn Monroe, Beyond the Legend. We all know that you guys fucked her up. And then we got The Final Days, a 2001 movie. And 2012, we got Love, Marilyn. And then this year, we're going to have Blonde, another thing that just tries to play with this woman. So you hear that list. Like, I listed every movie she has starred in from the beginning of her career in 47 to the end of her career in 62. And I want you to tell me if any of those films, aside from Some Like It Hot, The 7-Year Itch, maybe How to Marry a Millionaire, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and All About Eve, if any of those films are iconic. Like, just because I'm a weirdo, I know films like Ladies of the Chorus, and I know films like Love Happy, and The Asphalt Jungle, and Fireball, and just these really dumb other things that she's been a part of. But there's nothing truly unabashedly iconic about a lot of her work. And I guess that's just like the time period, because nobody really thinks about certain roles for Bacall either. Like, she just kind of like has the Key Largo song that's all about her and Bogey, and that's like what people are most reminiscent of her for, you know? I guess that makes sense, but for the most iconic woman and somebody we're still obsessed with, you'd think her iconography would come from more than just like 3 movies. But I guess that's just old Hollywood. Shit on a stick that inspires better things on a shittier stick, if that makes sense. Oh, man. So I don't have any recommendations for you. You have the list. What I will say is, watch all of it. Just do it. Watch old movies. Like, this is a thing we do need to do more of, is go back and watch old movies. So check out all of these films. I'm sure there's something you'll like in 1 or 2 or 4 of them. Maybe even 6. But what I can safely say is Marilyn Monroe, a figure who will never die in Hollywood, despite her lackluster acting career. But that you don't need to be an iconic actor when you have the beauty standards that still go on today. You just have to be Marilyn Monroe. And nobody was more Marilyn Monroe than Miss Marilyn Monroe herself. So thank you guys for watching this episode of the GeekWave. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on the podcast feed, please give us a rating. It helps out immensely. As always, I will check you guys out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and you will see me in the next one. That's how we do things here on the GeekWave. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you.